Short agenda tonight. Obviously, agenda item number one is the main topic, and as city and county folks, we could probably meet for days on different issues that we could all work on together or communicate better on and work through. But probably the reason we scheduled this one and tried to be timely about scheduling it is because we'd like to have a discussion with we as the county would like to have a discussion with those at the city about the annexation plan that we've seen put out recently. So with that,
Mr. Porter, our planning department, had a new presentation.
oh, okay.
Sure, people feel that.
Oh, there you are.
Planning commission. So
Why don't we do that and get that, go through that? That'd be great.
Okay. Well, hopefully this will answer some questions. And as we're going along, if you guys have questions and you want to ask, please do so. Otherwise, I'm going to proceed quickly through. So what we're talking about is Heber City's annexation policy plan. The city adopted its first annexation policy plan in the early 2000s when the state changed legislation regarding annexation policies. In order for a city to annex lands, a city has to have an annexation policy plan. This doesn't necessarily mean that the city is going to annex any land, and it definitely does not mean that the city is going to reach out and force people into the city. What it means is, based on the map, it shows where the city would be willing to seriously consider an annexation if the property owner were to propose an annexation. 99% of the time, annexations are initiated by at the request of property owners. Very rarely does a government or a city initiate an annexation. Some of the issues that have been brought up recently, primarily by Ron Phillips, the director of the Twin Creeks and Jordanelle districts, in regards to the proposed plan. The first issue has to do with existing and planned district utilities, how those are going to be treated and how those areas are going to be dealt with if those areas were to annex into the city. I think probably even bigger than that, and of interest, I think a lot to the county, is what the city might intend for residential densities in those areas. I know it's been a hot topic for the area east of Mill Road. The district's also pointed out that if the city is going to consider annexation, they'd like us to consider matching the district boundaries. And then lastly, the issue was brought up about the comprehensiveness of the city's existing annexation policy plan, especially in regards to services and district utilities. I think one of the bigger issues today will probably be the North Village Sorensen properties. As the city is looking to update its annexation plan, it did so at the request of property owners throughout the valley, some in the North Village, some near Charleston, and some near the bypass. Why would the city consider the North Village? Besides that, proximity to the city, the North Village is right next to the city. I think Doug was saying there's 6,000 some odd units. Doug, I can't remember how many he said in the North Village. But for this, that's essentially going to create a city that's larger than Heber City's current size. Our police department indicates that there's going to be a significant impact to their department, both in traffic through the city as well as the impact of that area, whether or not it's in the city. And that's because our police department oftentimes serves as the first responders for emergency calls, particularly to the apartments up in the North Village area. I think the city sees this area as likely incorporating at some point in the future and potentially serving as a competing city. The area in the Jordanelle certainly incorporated the hideout, and I think we're going to continually see more of those higher density urban areas incorporated. The city has done a significant number of annexations and is absent this will not be growing, so certainly the city's growth area will be limited if this doesn't get out of the map. And last, the area in the North Village and Sorensen properties have planned urban densities that are that you typically see in a city, and they certainly exceed the densities that are typically seen in the current city limits. One of the issues was about boundaries. You can see the brown areas represent the county GIS department's records of the Jordanelle assessment, North Village and Twin Creek areas. And you can see this white area represents the area that's being talked about. Now, the city already has an annexation policy plan, and it ends right at about this point, just about Coyote Lane. It also includes the Wasatch View Estates. It includes the area east of Mill Road, this little flag shape. It already includes most of the area of the sewer fields and down to 3,000 south. What would be talked about here is extending that boundary to include the rear of the properties that front the highway here. What else is being talked about is the area between this current city limits and the future bypass. And then, of course, this big area here. The purpose for this map is to show that if indeed the city needed to adjust the boundary of the annexation area to match the district boundaries, that could be done. The Planning Commission met with some council members last week to talk about the comments that the city's received from the county thus far. And I've kind of grouped these by area. So based on the North Village Sorensen area, the informal talks and recommendations have been to utilize the district infrastructure and to not utilize any city water and sewer. Also to match the boundaries as I showed on that previous map. I think we've unanimously got the council and planning commission, correct me if I'm wrong, saying that they would not want to see any more densities than what's already planned for in those areas. With red ledges, we already have a model to follow where that development utilized Twin Creek's water and sewer and some temporary city facilities. We've also seen that occur down in the Witt-Heiner Kaiser annexation down here. If this were to occur, an annexation up here, we recommended that the city and the county and the district do an interlocal agreement similar to what we did with red ledges to make sure that the issues are all dealt with. And given the significant area landmass-wise, the city, if ever given a petition for annexation, should really carefully analyze this because it is a very large area. Geographically, you can see it's easily going to more than double the mass of the current city. I call this area the North Fields. Understand, I don't mean the entire North Fields. It's just the area between the current city limits and the proposed bypass. Our planning commission felt that if that area is not coming to the city, that ought to remain agriculture, and we should look at agricultural preservation techniques and conservation developments. I don't think that there's probably consensus on that even coming in the city because the city does have an interest in maintaining all of the North Fields as agriculture. If it is done, the city would want that to be the ultimate annexation area to the bypass. The Twin Creeks area was talked about as well. If the city were to ever cross Mill Road, I'm not saying if, so please don't throw any rotten apples my way, the city would utilize the district's water and sewer infrastructure. The Planning Commission made it clear that that area, if it's to come in the city, should have similar densities as what the county has planned. We can certainly do interlocal agreements, and I think the likelihood of the developed areas to come into the city with developments such as Cobblestone, Beaufontaine, etc., are unlikely to come in the city. And if the city is going to update this map, I think it would make sense to at least exclude those areas and just look at the areas along Mill Road. And then last area would be what I've called Highway 189 between Charleston, Daniel, and Heber City. This area of the general plan is identified as economic development. If the city's going to look at any annexation down there and expansion of the boundary on this map down there, the city should really be looking at economic development. We've certainly had our share of rooftops going up in the city as well as throughout the valley and the county. And I think we really need to preserve that area for economic development. And that's all I have, yes.
On that 189, if I saw that proposing economic development, I assume you would consider the bypass agreement or the access agreement that we've all signed together on that stretch of highway.
Absolutely, that's an issue on the north side of town too, Kendall.
The county has one on the north.
Right, and obviously if any of this is going to happen, the city needs to come to the table and be a party to those agreements and respect the agreements that the county, UDOT, and Mountain Lands have formulated.
Are you talking about the corridor preservation agreement?
No, the highway access agreement where we signed together with UDOT to designate where the future accesses are going to be. Potential lights, we hope 100 years down the road.
Yeah, I think that's called corridor preservation.
Yeah. Okay. We're ready to bring the 118 on 40 South Highway 40 Council next week to finish that one. And you should have next week too.
Okay, that's all I have for my presentation, so I guess feel free to ask questions amongst yourselves and let's
Turn the
talk.
lights back on.
Why don't we, as we think about what we've talked about, why don't we just kind of go and any members of the city council, county council, manager, administration, county, city, planning, law enforcement, really anybody, please identify yourself in case we don't know who you are, so we've got it on the record. And comments, questions, and then direct them to who we think, and then we have some questions as a county council, or some of mine have been answered. So I don't know if we want to just start over here and work our way this way, or that matters, but why don't we, Mayor, or Mark, or Steve, or whoever wants to go first?
I'll say a few thoughts from this. I've had an opportunity to sometimes meet with some different cities that's like Helper and down in central Utah, where their population is depleting because of the coal mines and everything else, and it's hard to watch those cities to grow and they provide services for those local communities. I look at Wasatch County and Heber City. We're really fortunate to be able to have the problem, I guess you could say, of having people come into the valley. But they're going to come. This valley is going to fill up no matter what we say or do. If you put orders and codes in place, they're still going to come. It's just people love to come here. It's a beautiful valley. They want to be a part of it. But I'm trying to look at the city on these annexation boundaries. I don't want to box the city into a corner. I feel like sometimes if you do that to us, then our sources of revenue and opportunities to grow are going to be limited. And then we start sprawling off little cities like Independence, Hideout, and a few other places. I would just have this part come into Heber City and let it be part of our annexation and have one city still having maybe one or two cities down along the road here. For our future revenues and stuff, and I think for providing service, I think the county and the city can work together on those. If the county's already got services in place, I think the impact fees can go back to those districts and work out that end of I'd like to do this, what happens with it, to get it before it starts to develop out. And then you've got a massive infrastructure systems put in place, and someone's going to have to reverse somebody. That the city could get involved at the beginning of this part of this annexation part, those impact fees can be used from the city's end to help put this infrastructure part into it. But I think it's a good plan. We're following this point in time, what this part of this plan is. I think it's a benefit to the city and to the county for this to happen for it. Because what you've got going up into Mayflower also, man, that's going to be a huge development there. And I don't want to get into a competition where Heber's competing with what they call the North Village stuff. I didn't have it be part of the city, but revenue to come in the city and also counties to share with others. So that's kind of my thoughts. But I do support these annexation plans. Thanks, Mike.
My only concern is if we're going to do this, I think we ought to be more standardized in our planning and things like that. Because apparently the developers are trying to find the least or the easiest one to deal with, or the least restrictive. So if we're going to annex it, I think we ought to look at some kind of uniform code or something. So the only reason they're coming is they want to be able to get by with less than what the county is requiring now.
In the planning commission meeting last week, I mentioned to them my desire, and they did take a vote, it wasn't on the agenda, but I heard several agree that an ordinance or whatever it can be is a mechanism that we won't annex density different in the county. We don't want to get into that very thing that, now there may be other elements besides density, Steve, but
I think
there are, and we maybe need to list all those and be in coordination with them, but I don't want to see us get into a fight of who will build the most rooftops, and I wonder how either entity's going to support the schools and the infrastructure and everything else. So I think there seemed to be a willingness, there's some commission members, that was, I thought, pretty much a consensus that we the other night.
Yeah.
That we could move that forward as a policy.
Well, I think it's important what Steve said, that common density. Doug could talk about it more, but the North Village is already planned. We actually put a moratorium on that. Soon is over, is it over? Because we didn't want to see a row of apartments all the way into Heber like we see behind Walmart or like we see out there just by the college. We realized that the economy wasn't, the idea was that the economy would go houses more than apartments, and it wasn't. So we put a moratorium on it and changed our zoning in there, changed the code so that it wouldn't hopefully create that all the way in. And I like the idea, similar, so that the developers are going to come into the cities up the same way. The same type of density. We have different neighborhoods, different densities out along there. A road down the back side to serve those developments so that they can get to the planned accesses on the Highway 40 instead of having them come out every block. And anyway.
Certainly, as far as the standards, specs, and zoning standards, I think it would make sense to have the city adopt something very similar to what the county has, if not identical.
Please, Doug.
I've been dealing with the North Village Co since 2002. And it's been very difficult because here you've got urban densities on a UDOT road that we are intending to keep a high-speed facility. So we've got a corridor management agreement with UDOT where we only allow 4 full movement intersections from Coyote Lane, including Coyote Lane, all the way up to Highway 32. I just got a traffic impact study in today for the Sorensen development, which shows at build-out in 2040, 50,000 ADT on Highway 40 north of town, and 50,000 ADT on Highway 32. So I think it's critical that that traffic be managed in such a manner that the 73% of the valley's residents that commute out to jobs every day can get in and out of the valley. And that's one thing I'm concerned with is the intent of Heber to maintain that as a limited access highway. Because what we've got is developments that have to have access off one of those 4 full loop intersections, and anything in between has to be accessed off a frontage road that connects down to another access road. So it's like putting together a puzzle and trying to get all those roads to work, while you've got some people that are struggling with coming up with the money or the ability to connect to other roads, because we don't want driveways coming out all over the place on Highway 40.
Could you address the existing residences, I suppose, do they have a grandfathered access?
They have a residential access that they've been granted, but what we see with UDOT is if they go to some type of commercial use, then that would go away, or it'd have to comply with the management plan that we've got in place.
So a residential access is different from a commercial access, Doug?
The existing residential accesses are grandfathered. And if someone comes in and says, I want to do development that's 100% residential, then we're going to say, great, you've got to access off one of these 4 sections and get some type of frontage road or get a frontage road to connect to those.
Just like we were going to be going from between Charleston and us, and way down Canyon. So I'm just saying the grandfathered residential accesses that are already there going north, they can't be bought. You know, they can't be traded to some commercial developer that they can then somehow pay money to UDOT and get commercial access.
They're limited to existing use.
Just to existing use. And so if they do go away and that land's bought and that's not a residential area anymore, then they couldn't use it.
Well,
It's not an individual house.
Single resident.
Just for a single house.
The ones there, the house there, we have the access.
So if they buy in and go into a subdivision, they lose that residential access. Correct?
It's a one house, 2 or 3, 4 houses. Right?
I'm not sure, I just want to make sure that that's clearly understood right there.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I've got 2 hats on here, and I appreciate what the mayor said about revenue, but I'm not sure what your feeling is about taking the revenue from the county. We've put 15 years into the development of this property in anticipation of the revenue we would get. Is there any consideration for what we're not going to get? Now, if you take that from the county,
North Village.
North Village, Sorenson,
Could you specify what that revenue source is? Is that building permits? Is that-
it would strictly be building permits from a tax
So are
standpoint.
you looking at a revenue sharing? Is that what your solution would be if they were to annex, or is that what you're kind of driving at?
Well, what I'm driving at is that back in about 2002, the city refused service to this area. Refused. And that's what brought Rocky Mountain Power into North Village. We weren't going to have Rocky Mountain Power in North Village, but the city refused the service. And so we had to allow by state law Rocky Mountain Power into there. And now, I guess the game's changed, but in doing that, we had to spend 15 years and lots of money, bonds, everything else to put in infrastructure, do planning, and come up with all this in anticipation that someday this would then develop and pay back to the county what it's put in to bring this all about. The city had an opportunity to take that back in the day. We weren't after it by any means. And we weren't pushing the development. But to get the college, we had to encumber all of those properties in bonds through the agreement with the property owners to be able to afford to bring the water line down from the Jordanelle. We didn't have any way to service that. And so I just bring that question up. I appreciate the concern of revenue, but we have a concern as well from an administration standpoint that we put 15 years into this. And all of a sudden it's just taken
You guys
off.
have done a lot of work on that. I mean, even parts of the rest of the county, in your planning department, has spent years and years looking at these projects and stuff. And so I'm open on the table for whatever we can work something out. I don't know what it will be. I don't have the answer to that. I think we need to get down to when you get down to the fine print of what we want to do, not to do, I think we want to work something out of that. But I'm not sure what that would answer would be, but the revenues are important, I think, to both, but you still get your property tax, you probably lose your building permits and other sources of that. But what I'm looking at too is that those impact fees have been collected in yet, and who will take this on, these those impact fees to help up that infrastructure. And so it gets really developed out, and then you've got a bigger infrastructure, and if it comes back to the city, I mean, the city will have to maybe reimburse the county or do something, it's going to come more costly on the city.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. The other question I have, and Tony, you have had very compelling arguments of this is looking like a municipal area. And as a municipal area, it probably should be considered as potentially a municipal thing. What municipality is east of Mill Road? Where is that? If that's the argument for taking all of North Village and part of Jordanelle, then how does that argument even come to apply south of Center Street on Mill Road? And who of those property owners is requesting to be part of the city plan?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike.
It's the other way around, as far as all the property owners are telling me they don't want to be part of your plan.
Well, you're right. So Thursday night we did have a room full of cobblestone residents. I think we got some residents outside of the room here that have concern. My opinion is I think the likelihood of this ever being annexed into the city is very slim, and I think it's a very valid question of does the city even want to show this on the map?
I think, Daryl Bliss-Barr, Planning Commission, I think most of us on the Planning Commission were not really excited about annexing that area. East of Mill Road.
But, and yet you annex Wits.
Most of that's on the 2006 plan already. It's really not added a lot there if you look at the 2006 annexation.
Why did the Planning Commission approve the annexation of Wits property then? Why did that happen? That's east of Mill Road. And the city provides the water there.
Sure.
That the city is bringing in services into that area. I mean, those are all the things that you said wouldn't happen. That we would utilize the zoning, we would utilize the existing infrastructure. That's not what you've done, just in the last year.
Well, that was an agreement, remember, Mike, that the city and county came to as to how those would be served.
There wasn't water for Wits.
Right.
And I think we had a person who petitioned, thought it would be a better fit, and we did an agreement.
So all I'm saying is every time one of this deals here, then let's annex it. That's what it appears to be. And for a lot of the people that live in that area, they're very hesitant. I understand when Mr. Witt bought the property, he wanted to do more with it than it was allowed and zoned for at the time he bought it. Maybe lots of people, or maybe everybody feels that same way. They'd love to get more out of their property than what they paid for it or it's zoned for. But somewhere in the plan, there ought to be a consideration for what has gone on for the last 15 to 20 years in planning these areas. And that's the concern administratively from the county, is that we have put a lot of time and not seen what the added value is from the city.